want to make sure as a diasporan that you're familiar with the Land Act 2020. There's no more freehold in Ghana. I think it is an error to come into this earth and never own a piece of this earth. You cannot advertise.
You can't market in dollars. You cannot. Today we're going to be discussing buying in Ghana as a diasporan. So we are joined here today by Hannah, who has a real estate company, and they specifically, or I would say a large aspect of that is selling to diasporans. So do you want to give us a little intro?
Yeah, well, thanks. First of all, thanks for having me here, Hannah and George. Thanks for seeing you again.
I know, right?
So basically, Ewell's Realty and Consultancy is our real estate brokerage company that we've had for about 10 years now. And we help individuals both locally and in the diaspora who want to buy, sell, rent properties, whether it's residential or commercial, and land as well. And the consultancy piece is I definitely provide advisory services for individuals who want to purchase property in Ghana, whether they're first-time home buyers or they're first-time investors or seasoned investors. I kind of assist them with that as well. And then we have Ewell's Homes, which is the real estate development piece. And we have our project in Adenta, Manfro, and Cape Coast.
Lovely.
Thank
Love
you.
that.
Thank you.
Define for me what a diasporan is.
Okay, so there are two different types of diasporas, right? You have the historical diasporas. Those are the ones who were taken away because of the slavery. And then you have the continental diasporas, and those are individuals like us who actually are from Ghana, and then we go overseas for education or work purposes or whatever it is, and then we come back home. So those are the type of diasporas. And currently there are over 200 million diasporas living abroad. Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting.
How important would you say it is for someone who is in the diaspora wanting to buy a home in Ghana or an investment property in Ghana? How important is it for them to locate and work with an agent like yourself?
Extremely. I always say this, I don't understand why people would bypass engaging professionals in a real estate transaction. And I always say there should be at least 4 key players in a real estate transaction, which is a real estate agent like myself and a professional, because they are unprofessionals in Ghana too. Absolutely. So you want to make sure you get the professionals so that you safeguard your investment. And you have to look at buying a home beyond a home. You're buying a home as an investment.
Right.
And if you are somebody in the diaspora, you should look at, buying a home or home ownership is your way of owning a piece of your homeland.
Facts.
And I think it is an error to come into this earth and never own a piece of this earth. So everybody should own a piece of their homeland. I really believe that.
Love that. So from what you can see in terms of people that approach you who are from the diaspora or in the diaspora and looking to purchase here, are you noticing any trends?
Absolutely. With those in the diaspora, they're either purchasing for real estate investment opportunities, and then you have some that are purchasing because they want to reconnect to their roots. And the best way to do that is through home ownership.
I've seen that quite a lot, actually.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
Hannah, I have 2 lovely Hannahs now.
I was like,
I
yes,
automatically respond thinking it's me. It's not me, it's you.
All right.
It might be you. Yes,
It's
George.
you.
Going forward, I'll be Miss Atiase. Is that right?
Let her have Hannah. It's her name. It's fine.
So, was it a good pronunciation?
Very good. A lot of people butcher it, but you did well.
Okay, good. So, quick one. Obviously, there's due diligence that needs to be done. Is there anything special about a diasporan purchasing? What is the process like for them?
Okay, so, we are the only real estate company in Ghana that provide escrow services. And that process is similar to the process in the United States and the UK as well, because we wanted to make sure we have something that people are familiar with and can relate to. So the diasporans, if you're coming through Ewell's Realty, it's the same process, right? But what I would say is that you want to make sure as a diasporan that you're familiar with the Land Act 2020, which says that there's no more freehold in Ghana. Because in the States, you have fee simple, you can own the land forever and ever. But in Ghana, nobody owns the land forever and ever, right? It's a lease period. So if you are not a Ghanaian, right, and you are a foreigner, you can only get up to 50-year lease. So make sure you are aware of that. And then, you make sure you have the right clauses in the indenture that says that, you can renew it at a reasonable cost after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so that is the only due diligence, is to know that.
Well, that's one of the main things. But in terms of due diligence, going through the escrow process, a lot of people think that because they've gone through the Lands Commission, they've checked the validity of the owner, and it's like, woohoo, I'm good to go. There are 8 places that you need to check and do your due diligence.
Really?
Yes, they are. There are 8 places, and that's why I host the first-time home buyer seminar, because I teach you about the home buying process in Ghana. But there are 8 places to check. So, one of the places obviously is the Lands Commission, and that the title division, you're just checking the validity of the owner.
Right.
And then there's High Court, because you want to make sure there's no litigation on the land.
Which is often the case here in Ghana.
Yes, because nobody checks the High Court.
Right.
You check, and yes, the name has Hannah on there, and so I say, okay, it's owned by Hannah. What I don't know is that there's litigation, because now George and Hannah are fighting over this property, but I haven't checked the High Courts, right? So that's something else. I mean, there's zoning. Am I purchasing a property that's zoned commercial, or is it zoned residential?
I didn't know that. But why would you go to check the zones?
Okay, let me give you a perfect case, right? An individual had bought a house, their dream home, they were living there and everything. And years later, somebody came and put a pig farm across the street.
Shut
Now,
up.
can you imagine? You're chilling on your balcony and there's some pigs running across the street, right?
Shut up.
And they were like, this is our home. Why are you here? And the person's like, because this is zoned commercial. Why are you here? Right? So now you can't get rid of them because they're actually in the right zone and you're not.
And you're not, right?
Yeah, so somebody
But in
could put
Accra,
nightclub there.
is there such an area as residential?
Absolutely. Go to zoning. Yes.
Wow. Is there zoning?
And planning, yes. And you'll see there's commercial, there's residential, the areas that are industrial where you have warehouses. You see, the best thing to do is do all the necessary due diligence so that somebody can't just put a nightclub across the street and there you go, they're partying all night and then you're upset. But you're in the wrong zone.
Right.
So there are more places. And then taxes.
Taxes? What does tax got to do with me buying a property?
Good. George, let's say you bought a property from me, right? I've owned this property for about 20 years. And I decide I am paying taxes, right? Now you buy the property and all of a sudden the tax enforcement people come to your house and they're like, George, you haven't paid taxes since 2000. And you're like, I just bought the property last year. Do you think they're going to come after me?
Oh, so that works in Ghana?
It does.
I didn't know that.
It does.
There's the property tax rate, right?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
I knew that.
And you got to pay your taxes. I'll tell you this, there was a situation where a client wanted to rent out a property, right? So they went through the entire process. And guess what? A few months into it, they were slapped with an ECG bill of over 20,000 cedis. ECG was like, I don't care about the previous
That's got nothing
tenant.
to do with me.
Yeah.
You're here.
You're here right now, and they have to pay. But this is all part of the due diligence process that we provide in the escrow services.
Wow. Interesting.
And I think, because I was sitting here trying to understand the reasoning behind why somebody wouldn't, and I can only imagine that it's just cost.
Right.
But I feel like by not using an agent, the potential loss in cost supersedes what it would cost you to just go through an
Absolutely.
agent. So
Facts.
please, let's use
more than an
certified
agent.
agents
Yes.
who are going to conduct the right checks and do the due diligence for you.
Well, let me add to that. It's, the real estate agent will help you in terms of making sure that you go through the right process, but you need to engage a legal entity.
Right.
So the escrow account is a third-party account, which is overseen by our legal, person. And I'll give you a perfect example. You want to buy land, right? And so you put a 10% deposit with the seller. And then you go and you do your due diligence at only the Lands Commission, right? And then you find out that the name doesn't match the name of the seller. Now you try and get your 10% back and tell me how that goes.
Not going to happen.
Exactly. So what we do is the funds are put in the escrow account. The lawyer does all the due diligence in all the 8 places. Once you have the green light, then he disperses the funds to the seller. So, you're safeguarding your investment. But there is a fee.
Of course.
And everybody's trying to avoid this fee.
It's the fee.
But I'm like, it's better to pay this small initial upfront fee than to pay years in court.
Yeah.
Court fees. And 70% of court cases today are land related.
Facts.
So
but how do
pay
you
that money.
how do you manage the expectations of diasporans?
Yeah, so
Because I'm sure you can tell us a lot of
because they're very set in their ways, and they have certain ways that they do things, and some people just have tunnel vision.
Right.
This is how we've always done it. This is how it's done, where I'm coming from, and they just have expectations that's going to be the case here. So how do you manage those expectations?
yeah, well, you see, the key thing is that first of all, you have to set their expectations realistically. If you've never purchased in Ghana before, you've got to have clear lines of communication.
Absolutely.
You've got to let people know that this is the standard here.
Yeah.
It's not going to take you 6 months to build a property like you would in the States. It's going to take you at least 18 to 24 months. I mean, if you set people's expectations accordingly and you're realistic about it, then, it's fine.
Makes sense.
But also, you do have to raise your standard a bit.
Yeah.
Our turnaround times, our response times, our customer service, customer experience.
Yep.
You want people walking away saying, wow,
And
what
coming
an experience.
back and recommending.
And referring. I mean,
That's
90% of our business is off of referrals.
Absolutely.
So I think, we have to raise our standard in Ghana, because people will tell you, they'll send you emails. And Ghanaians won't respond.
Of course not.
They'll call, right? And then a week later, you're like, hello, somebody called. You know what I mean? So you also have to raise your standards and meet those international standards.
And I think that this is some of the frustrations that a lot of people from the diaspora have, is that there are so many lapses. There's this whole culture that is like a slowness in everything. It's too laid back, you know. And I think that puts a lot of people off. So I think it's good when people are able to find companies, agents and things that understand that gap and fill that for them.
Absolutely. It's very important.
How do you address challenges that clients face in terms of timing and that kind of stuff? How do you face those challenges?
With great difficulty. So, because we are real estate brokers or real estate agents, we are essentially the middleman, right?
Absolutely.
And so a lot of times you run into situations where developers are not providing realistic timelines, or they're not providing like updates. If you're in the diaspora, you want to know what's happening with your investment.
Right.
And so you need to be able to provide them with progress reports, which I always advise developers to do monthly progress reports, so that, doesn't go out to them. So now you have to stop what you're doing to go and get updates to the client, which you have actually already handed over to the developer.
Yeah.
And then construction delays. I am yet to work with a developer that completes a project when they say they do. So then you have those in the diaspora who've shipped all their stuff. They're ready to move in and celebrate Christmas.
Property's not
and
ready.
It's not ready. Yeah. So, we just have to hold their hand through the process and, just try and help them as much as possible in terms of giving them updates.
Yeah.
And in terms of getting realistic updates from developers and communicating that.
And from your experience, what do you feel are the most common concerns that clients have when purchasing here?
Quality. The quality of the
Quality
build.
of the build?
Of the build. And the finishing.
Okay.
I mean, I was talking about engaging a real estate broker and a legal entity. I engage an inspector. a building inspector, because how many of us know that
It's
they may
necessary.
not build according to the building code, right?
True,
And you
true,
know,
true,
there
true.
is a building code
There
that
is.
they need to follow, right? And so that, I think it's one of the concerns is the quality of the build and the finishing as well. A lot of shoddy finishings, you know, you'll find that when you do the walk through the development.
And I guess that's why track record is also important when purchasing with a developer, because I mean, 9 times out of 10 it works. If your last project is finished to an excellent standard, you know, you built what the renders said was going to be there, it's highly likely that you're going to be able to replicate that in the current project that you are selling to people. But I feel like, especially with a lot of developers, that this is their first build or their second, some of them are just winging it and just trying to see how it goes. And, you know, they planned to do spotlights, but
It didn't work
when the
out for
budget
them.
was coming, it wasn't, you know. So I definitely think track record is an important factor.
You know, I think track record is an important factor in the assurance of completion,
Okay.
but not necessarily
In the
the
finishing.
assurance of the finishing. I'll give you an example. There's a developer that's been around for years. They've done a lot of developments. I mean, if I name them, you would all know the developer, right?
Drop the name.
Please don't
Drop the name.
Please don't drop the name.
And I had a client. It was raining that day, right? It was raining, and the client sent me a video, and their furniture was swimming in the living room.
Oh no.
He's like, "This is the house he bought, and he paid cash for that home, 100% up front. You know, from Georgia, you know." And you know, what do I say to that? This is a developer that's been around for years, and has built a lot of projects. So, you know, I think that I don't know what it is. So that's why I won't recommend a developer, but I'll recommend project per project based on my due diligence on that project, etc. But I'm not going to say go with this developer because
they've built
so
XYZ.
well. Yes, and then when it comes to this project, they're like, "Well, Hannah, you recommended this developer, so I would assume you're talking about any project they do," and it may not be the case.
Which is true.
And I think it's
makes
because
sense.
you don't have inspectors that go and inspect. So we have incorporated that. We have an inspector that inspects from foundation, lintel, roofing, and then finally interior before funds are dispersed. But that's also another thing. Is everybody happy about an inspector
Not
going to
necessarily.
the site?
Extra cost. But tell me something. So I'm Diasporan.
Right.
I want to buy in beautiful Ghana. What are the steps?
Okay, great.
I've
So-
never been to Ghana,
Right.
but I'm somewhere in Georgia. I'm like, you know what? Maybe
Sight unseen.
I want to buy a piece of the motherland. What is the process?
Okay, so we're going to do the process as sight unseen, that you're still in Georgia and you want to buy in Ghana,
Yes.
right? Okay, so the first thing we would do is we would have a virtual meeting with you to understand what your reasons are for purchasing, whether you want to buy a first-time home as a residential home, or is this going to be a vacation home, or is this going to be an investment property? Because
From your experience, what are the diasporans buying now? Why are they buying?
from our experience now, especially with their new administration that's coming up, a lot of people are buying,
Relocating?
relocating,
Really?
and second homes. Yes. People want the option to be able to go somewhere else. So
Wow.
people are looking at second homes, yeah, and
Interesting.
relocating. Some are relocating, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we would have a meeting, the virtual meeting, to understand what your needs are. And then we would talk about what you're looking for in terms of whether it's a condo or a townhome or a self-compound or whatever it is. And then the location, we'll talk about your budget. We'll talk about
But they've never
finance.
been here, so how would they know the locations?
Well, I would know whether they want something that is close to the city center, they want something in the countryside, do they want something that's beachfront, or do they want something that's got mountain views or skyline views? So
Okay.
based on their preference,
You make a
I will know,
recommendation.
what location for that. And some people don't want to be, a lot of diasporans want to be in the outskirts. They don't want to be right there in the city.
They're tired of the cities.
Yeah, exactly. And they want land. They want greenery,
right.
And that sort of thing. And then we ask about your budget, your financing options, because you may need to get a diaspora mortgage here, or, you can pull
Do they
funds from there.
exist?
They do. They do.
Really?
We have developer-backed mortgages, diaspora mortgages, seller financing. I mean, there are a lot of financial options. In fact, this next week, that's what we'll be talking about, real estate financing options at our seminar.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, so there are a lot of options. So we'll talk about all that. And then once they decide, then we will send them videos, images of the property. Then they'll select a handful of them. And then we'll go to the site and then we'll do some videos.
So they don't actually have to be here to purchase?
No, we've had people pay without even coming to Ghana. Yeah. I mean, it's just the same thing as we would just go online. We see a property in Portugal. We look at the numbers. If it's for investment, it works for us, you just buy it. Because it's like the stock market. We don't really see the stocks and the company, but the numbers work.
That was going to be my next question is how do you, especially people buying remotely, how do you keep them feeling involved in the process?
Yeah, so there will be a lot of virtual tours. So we would actually go out to the property and then walk them through the property. If they're building, if it's off plan, that's when the developer also has to come in and we make sure they send monthly progress reports to them so they feel a part of the process. So they get a lot of videos and images. Yeah.
Have there been cases where clients have come in with their expectations, you're mid-transaction, and things have had to change, they're now contrary to their expectations? Still, hopefully, with the same end goal, but, you've had to adjust to new expectations, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Because buying a home is so personal, people are really emotional about it, and there is a strong attachment to it. So a lot of times, people will make changes along the way. So if it's like an off-plan new construction, they may want to change, maybe the color of the tiles or the kitchen cabinets and that sort of thing. So yeah, those changes come into play. If they're renting out a property, we can get some clients who are a little picky and want a lot of changes. So yeah, that happens. But you just have to speak with the seller, speak with the landlord, and try and compromise and meet in the middle.
That's great.
Hannah, how does the dollar and the pound work against what you do? The foreign currency exchange.
It doesn't work against what we do. It actually helps us quite a bit because it's if you're talking about diasporans, a lot of times they are going to pay in dollars. They are going to pay in pounds. So because it's a dollar-backed investment, it's a hedge against inflation, actually. So it actually helps us.
No, but my understanding is that you can't spend dollar in Ghana.
Who told you?
No, it's against the law.
Well, no, you can't advertise in dollars.
But you can use dollars to make the purchase. Developers can receive dollars. It's.
You're not supposed to.
Developers do have dollar accounts, and if somebody, for example, is sending funds, they can do a dollar-to-dollar transfer. But I see what you're saying, because the Bank of Ghana, the directive is that you cannot advertise.
You can't market in dollars. You cannot say this property is X amount of dollars. But if I say it's 1,300,000 cities, I can use dollars to purchase at the equivalent rate.
The exchange rate.
Yes.
And that's what I'm asking. So how does that hurt or help your business, the exchange?
But that's what I think she's saying. If you're using dollars to do that, it doesn't.
You're melting the dollar.
It doesn't.
Plenty.
Right. It doesn't. Yes. It doesn't really affect them negatively.
Yeah.
But rather positively.
Yes. Who it may affect is like developers who are importing from overseas. Like they are purchasing, the supplies from overseas. Then the dollar, CD conversion will hurt them because they have to buy dollars. And then when they're coming in,
Well, then they push it off over to the buyer.
They push it over to the buyer.
But
Import taxes and all
once you have agreed a price, so let's just say you've agreed a price, irrespective of where they are in the purchasing process, that can't change.
Facts.
Just because the dollar has
gone up or gone down.
That doesn't, you can't change the price. The price is now the price.
Well,
so you're either losing or you're gaining.
You've made a good point, and I'd like to also say at this point, people should be very careful when they read their sales and purchase agreement because there is an allotment for price adjustment because of inflation. So you need to make sure you read the clauses very carefully because the price can change if it's in the agreement.
I don't know if the purchase price can change.
Yeah.
I've not seen where the purchase price itself can change, but I know that, of course, when it comes to making payments and stuff, they will only do it at whatever the current rate is.
Well, I'll say that I have seen the prices change.
You have?
I have.
That's so dangerous.
And that's why people want to advertise in dollars. Because if I'm advertising a home today, right, and the rate is $1, $2.50 today,
right,
and then I'm advertising the home for 1 million CDs, and in 3 months' time, $1 is 20.
Well, now that change has come.
Exactly.
The dollar will go down.
Let's see, because you seem very confident. Let's hope
yeah,
so.
Mizzou.
Let's hope so.
Oh yeah, Mizzou.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so.
We're all very hopeful, George.
I know, right?
So, just in closing, what advice would you give to people in the diaspora who want to buy property for investment or as a second home in Ghana? What kind of advice are you giving?
But before you answer that though,
Sure.
what is the difference between me being Ghanaian buying and somebody diasporan buying?
Non-Ghanaian. So
Yes.
they're foreigner.
Yes.
So you would get a lease hold up to 99 years.
Okay.
And then the foreigner would get up to 50 years.
Is that the only difference?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the only
Everything else is
difference.
the
It's the
same.
same.
And
Unless
even
you're
with
getting
that-
a mortgage.
Even with
Okay.
that, if I'm not wrong, I think that's only with stall land. I think if you're purchasing something that's on government land, the standard is 50 years, whether you're foreign or local.
Yes, but a Ghanaian can get up to 99 years.
Even on government land?
For government lands,
I think 50 is
according
the
to the
standard.
Land Act, yes. But then you do have the option with other lands if
Sure.
it's up to 75 years,
Sure.
up to 99 years. But to also answer your question, if you're getting a mortgage and you are a Ghanaian, you can get up to a 20-year loan. If you are a foreigner, it's up to 15 years.
15.
Yes. And then the down payment amount can vary. For local, a Ghanaian, it could be 20. For a foreigner, it could be 30 years.
Oh,
Because it's higher risk. If
Yeah,
you're
Definitely.
not,
absolutely.
Definitely.
Yes. So I think those are the key things. But the question I always get is, okay, what if I'm married to a Ghanaian and I'm a foreigner? It's going to go according to the foreigner.
Really?
Yes. So if you're married to a foreigner, you're not going to be able to get 99 years. It'll be 50
But if
years.
I'm buying,
But is your wife's name going to be on the
So far as her
documents?
name is not on it,
Is that
that's
the
fine.
case?
Well, keep her off the documents then, George.
really?
Yes, yes.
So if my spouse happens to be a foreigner, automatically,
And you're buying together.
Exactly.
and we're buying together, automatically reverts to that's crazy. That's not fair.
But I also think that, okay, in marriage, I think it's different. But I guess for them, it's also protecting themselves against people using
That
to get property.
Yeah.
Is it
on
the same
cheap.
for commercial as well? Commercial property? Same rules apply for the commercial?
I think the same rules apply. I mean, I would have to double check the Land Act 2020. But for commercial, I think it's for all properties. Yeah,
Wow.
I believe that as well.
Interesting.
But also in the event that, God forbid, something happens to you, and your wife's a foreigner, she can't just keep holding it for 99 years.
Right.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
So, these are.
But then
some of
if
the
I'm
things.
married, automatically she becomes Ghanaian as well.
No,
Not
she has to go
necessarily.
through the process. Of
Yeah, but
getting
you
her-
think that.
Well,
right?
if she goes through the process and she has Ghanaian
She naturalizes,
citizenship,
yeah.
yes, then yes.
Makes
But even
sense.
then, you have to be married, I think, 5 years, right, before they can get
Ghana?
that. Before they can get that Ghana, we have rules.
George is making plans.
Who wants Ghana papers?
Hey,
You'll be surprised.
Let's switch.
You'll be surprised. Did you see how many people went for the
Citizenship.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
So people want Ghanaian papers. Trust me.
524 people. I was actually there at the
Really?
ceremony.
I saw that. I was like, oh, that was impressive.
Yeah, 524 people. Yeah. So it was good. So what I would advise people is make sure that you engage professionals.
Yeah.
So the question is, where do we find these professionals, right? So we have Ghana Association of Real Estate Brokers, where you will find a lot of professional real estate brokers that are part of the association. These people have been vetted. They have been checked for any criminal records. They've gone to CID to do fingerprinting. Yes, I've been fingerprinted. And also they have a code of ethics. There are standard commissions you have to charge. And so there's transparency. You have standardized documents. So that is the professional route you should take. Because a lot of people don't know, and then don't use family members who say, hey, but I've lived in Ghana for 20 years.
Oh, I can just get up and be you'll
be in trouble. You know, I mean, for everything else that you go to, a doctor or even a barber, you don't go to a family member and say, Charlie, can you just,
cut
shave
my
me?
hair.
You don't. So for the largest investment people will ever make in a lifetime, why would you just use anybody?
Right.
Very
Right?
true.
Use a professional. So that's what I would tell people. Engage the services of a professional to make sure that you safeguard your real estate investment in Ghana.
Good. Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you.
So if I need to find you, where can I find you?
You can find me on all social media platforms, Hannah Atiase or at Ewells
See,
Realty.
you're not even saying it properly. It's Hannah Atiase.
Hey, it's Atiase.
He's going to tell you your name. If there's one thing George is going to do.
The last name is actually from the Volta.
Is
region.
it?
Yeah.
So it's not actually...
So all Atiases were related. It means the survivor, the surviving one.
Atiase is tree.
That's
Zakan.
what it means.
Yeah,
it means the
Otiase.
surviving one, but it's from my grandpa's side, who was like Ewe.
Interesting,
Yeah.
interesting.
And then my grandma was Ashanti Mampo.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. So at Hannah
So
Atiase.
Can you give us her name? Thank you. Thank you.
And at Ewells Realty, and our office is in East Legon, 39 Garden Road.
Nice,
East Legon,
nice,
on your way to
nice.
ANC Mall.
Thank you so
for
much. This has
coming
been
by.
very insightful. I
Thank you.
definitely think you've given our listeners things to think about, things that they can convey to their family members in the diaspora when wanting to purchase in Ghana.
Thank you.
And you know what?
Thank
We're
you
going to
for
have
having
you
me.
back again because
Yes,
it was
we
very
must.
insightful. I enjoyed this.
Oh,
We
thank
must.
you.
We're gonna have you back.
Thank you.
All
It'll
right,
be good
then.
to see you again and again.
Definitely.
And
Thank
nice
you
to meet
so
you
much,
as well,
nice to meet
Hannah.
you too.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that brings us to the close of the Homefront. We will see you again soon. Thank you.